Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Open Dialogue, the number one podcast based out of Utah Valley, a podcast dedicated to exploring religion, relationships, and reflections of the world around us and everything in between. Most importantly, promoting a no-filter open discussion where every voice matters. I'm Samson, I'm your host, and thank you so much for listening, watching, and spending some time with me today. Let's get right into it. I have a podcast. Yes, this is going to be a thing now. As if the million and one other things that I'm already doing. Uh, but yes, I just decided to start a podcast, and you'll have to be patient with me. This episode, I think I might just call this episode zero. I- Like, it's not gonna look the same way. And I think that all the other episodes will be a little different just because I'll have a guest on. There'll be multiple camera angles and a lot of things going on. But I just kind of wanted to hop on here, break the ice, introduce what's going on, what I'm doing. Um, let's just start with why. Why am I starting a podcast? I, quite frankly, love the idea of a no filter, more raw sense of reality. I think I like the idea that you can sit down and talk and just pass the time, exploring perspective, exploring different ideas. And I think that's something that we lack in today's society because a lot of things are now texting based and a lot of things are on social media and how many likes and how many follows. And in all honesty, I'm guilty of that as well. But I find that in a podcast, there's no expectation. It's just a couple people sitting down, or one person in my case right now, sitting down and just talking about their feelings and talking about their ideas and different perspectives about life and everything. I This last year, it's 2024 now. This last year of 2023 was quite a roller coaster for me in terms of emotions, in terms of memories, in terms of people, things that happened. Just a lot happened in 2023. And I realized that I was going too fast. I feel like it was one thing to another, and I think I was focusing on the wrong things at times. But I actually had the opportunity to take a philosophy class. I'm actually doing a philosophy minor, and I had the opportunity to take a philosophy class this past semester over at BYU. And in that class, it really helped me understand the importance of listening and discussing everything. I mean, philosophy is kind of like a thing where it's like you can be right, you can be wrong. It all depends on how well you argue about it and how sound and valid your arguments are. So in doing that, I realized how can I like incorporate this in my life? How can I find a way to do this with other people in a safe space with no expectations, just talking? And I realized that a podcast is the way to go. I am actually going to be interning for a podcast, a different podcast this next semester. And I just thought this was a perfect opportunity, a new year, a new way to document ideas and perspectives. So, in a sense, that's why I'm doing a podcast. Um, but I kind of just want to shout out a few people right now from the get go. My mom and dad, first of all, encouraged me so much to be true to who I am and explore um, different ideas and not be afraid to talk about different things. I want to shout out a lot of different people that I hope will be on the show as we continue on, as I get more comfortable and as I develop a better idea of what this is going to look like. But um, this podcast is going to, like I said in the beginning, it's going to be very centered on various discussions about religion and not just the LDS religion, but just religion in general. like what is religion? Why do we need it? A lot of different questions and topics like that. And along the lines of that, we'll be talking a lot about relationships, intimate relationships, friendships, just any type of relationships, what that looks like in today's society, hear from people and their different experiences. But most of all, reflection, just a lot of reflecting on what's going on in the world around us. I mean, I'm a young person. I haven't really lived life to the fullest yet, I would imagine. But I imagine that the world is going to be so different a year and a half from now, let alone 5 years, 10 years down the line. And so the world is just changing so quickly that I think it warrants a discussion about what's going on around us. What are we seeing? What are we thinking? But yeah, I think that's kind of where I'm hoping this podcast will get the meat and the bones. That's where we're going to really dive into topics like that. And from the beginning, I'm not expecting to have big names on here, but I am going to be having some of my closest friends, people that I feel have a lot to say and I can have a good discussion with about just a lot of different topics. What I'm planning on doing is hopefully releasing an episode every week. I'm not planning on these being very long episodes, but I am hoping to release one every week. And I am a full-time student, so on top of that, and being a manager for the basketball team, there's time crunch. But I that's what I hope to do moving forward. Um, Podcast is usually going to be structured this way. When we talk about agenda, usually there's going to be, in a sense, there's going to be an introduction. I'm going to have a guest on, and there's usually going to be a topic for the episode. Now, this topic I'm going to try to choose from the Instagram page for this podcast because I really want this to be an inclusive podcast. This is not a podcast where I get on here and I talk about what I want to talk about. I want to talk about what the listeners want to talk about. I want to talk about what you want to listen to, right? What is important to you? What topics interest you? And so there's going to be a lot of inclusivity when it comes to the topics for each episode. But there is going to be usually a main topic for each episode. And I'll usually be here to discuss my ideas, my thoughts on it with a guest, with someone sitting in the chair next to me. And we'll just really dive in and have a good conversation. Usually with this, I'll interview the guests on what their perspectives and ideas and thoughts on. And then this is the part that I'm actually super excited about. It's going to be a segment where we have an open question. The show is called Open Dialogue for a reason. Now, this open question is going to be uh, a question or two that is taken straight from you, the viewer, the listener. It's taken straight from you and how you contributed on Instagram or wherever you may be listening or watching to this. At the end, I'll kind of tell you how to reach out. But it's going to be this segment where we take real life questions asked from real life viewers or listeners and address them on the show. I want to be able to, let's say, for instance, Jill is a viewer or a listener of Open Dialogue, and she asks a question about what are your thoughts on the educational system? Something like that, right? Just a random question that a viewer or a listener asks, and we have a specific segment. I'd like to have a specific segment on the show where I address that with the guest. And it's just only that question. And so I think that's a segment that's going to be very unique to Open Dialogue in this podcast because while there's going to be a main topic and very much interviewing with the guest, I also want to have a segment that's just dedicated solely to the viewers and to the listeners. And then after that, there's usually going to be a little bit more discussion and then an outro. So, in all, that is the structure of the podcast and how I'm hoping to do this. But keep in mind, this is the first time I'm doing something like this, and so it's going to be like a learning curve. I'm super excited. I'm grateful for the journey that I'm about to go on with this. I don't know what this is going to be. And this is the very first episode. Low key, like I said, I think I might just call it episode 0 because it's not really formatted as the way these podcast episodes will go. I just wanted to hop on as a little introduction, but I would assume that with every episode, with every time that we record this, it gets easier and it becomes a little more comfortable. But I'm super excited to do this with you. And just to kind of round out this introduction, um, what's going to be happening is right now, as of right now, I have an Instagram page up for this podcast. It's actually open_dialogue_podcast. So if you go on Instagram and you search up open_dialogue_podcast, that is the page. And you should see what's behind me here. You should see the logo as the profile picture. And so I invite you all to go and follow that. That is where primarily I'll be asking for viewer and listener interaction with questions that they would like to have addressed or topics and things like that, or even guests that I should have on the show. But as of right now, that is the main place that we can connect as we're starting out. Hopefully, eventually, I want to branch out to email. I want to branch out to a website, all that stuff. But we got to start somewhere. So I think that's where we're going to start. We're going to start with open_dialogue_podcasts on Instagram. So if you heard that, I'm going to say it one more time. Open_dialogue_podcast. Okay, go ahead and give that a follow. Send me a message, say hi, do whatever you'd like. And then I just want to make sure that you understand the importance of growth. I am on this journey with you, and I actually can't do any of this without your support. I have so many friends and so many people that are close to me that are encouraging me to do this, that are behind me, and I appreciate each and every one of you so much. But as of right now, that's all I have for you. If there's any other questions, anything that you'd like to let me know, please go to the Instagram, shoot me a message, comment on a post. I hope to interact with all of you. Like I said, this is an open and safe place, and I'm so excited to see where this journey takes us. But for now, this has been Samson from the Open Dialogue Podcast, and I hope to see you on the next episode, hopefully with a guest. Thanks, guys.